parent. Welcome again to our Rewrite the Narrative gem story time. Why do I sympathize or empathize with single parent households, single moms, absentee father, and fatherless children? When I was 6 years old, my father died, and my mother became a single mom. We migrated from the parish where he died, and we went, before we migrated from the parish where he died, my mom was a single mom for a while in a location where she was pretty much foreign to that location. My father moved us to a location where it was just us. And after he died, my mom moved closer to his family, and she had to figure out life for herself in a foreign environment with 3 little boys. I have more siblings, but at the time it was 3 little boys that she had to take care of. So that's the environment that I knew at the time. After my father died, my mother became the only parent. It was at a point where we could just accept a single parent because we didn't really understand the difference. We didn't understand the difference. We understand that the discipline was there when he was there, and she enforced that discipline after he was no longer there. Not very long after he died, she moved to where her mom lived, and we all lived together with her mom. Her mom's husband had already died, so the household did not have a man. We had other male cousins in that household, but no woman, no female. So it was just my mom and my grandma. I remember the day when my father died. My mom was crying, and I saw her crying, and I joined in. I started crying along with her. A guy looked at me and he said, "Hey, stop crying. You are now a man. Your father died. You are now the man of the household." I stopped crying, and believe it or not, I grew up. I literally became a responsible young man at 6 years old. I found pleasure in being responsible because I became willing. I became very willing, very capable. I didn't want to see my mom cry again. So if she said, "Go get water," I went to get water. If she told me, all of us to get water, and the other siblings were not cooperating, I'll get their water also and make sure everything flow. When I heard people spoke of my dad, it was all positive. People from everywhere that knew him spoke positively of him. They spoke extremely positively of him. The impact that he made on their life was lasting. If it was a negative impact, it was negative for life. And if it was positive, it was positive for life. So the people who spoke of him, they would have only spoke positive. This guy was no longer physically there, but when I heard of him, it was all positive. I wanted to be like this man. Who is he? I don't know him, but I want to be him. You know, that's exactly what I wanted to be. This guy was a family man who ensured that the household was okay, and his friends they had a father in him. They could come to him for a good advice, and it was appreciated. One of the problems, however, this guy was illiterate. He could not read, but he could give you good advice. And he was intelligent, illiterate but intelligent. And this brings me to the point that intellect does not equal intelligence. Intellect is like precision intelligence. You focus on one topic and you get extremely good at that topic, and that would be intellect. Intelligence is your ability to focus on pretty much anything you want to focus on, but you don't limit yourself to any one thing. And over time, that's what I understood. His ability to reason with his friends to be. He was intelligent, but illiterate. I even heard stories where he went to Jamal late in life when he was in his 30s to learn to read and write. And that was the kind of person that I wanted to become. I wanted to become a person who just break the barriers, you know what I mean? I wanted to be like the man that I heard about. And that brings me to the point that an absentee father doesn't mean that he's destroying the family, because this man could be absent, but he is present in the mind of his children through their mothers, through his friends, through positive reinforcement. Sometimes the absentee parents offer so much more to a child than the parents who is present, because the parents who stay behind or who is present, they influence the child with all kind of biases, and they literally transfer their pain and anguish to that child, a child who is not prepared for all that, a child who is in a household with a single parent who is not prepared. But you also have nuclear household situation where there are two broken parents in that household, and that child is constantly bombarded with negative emotions coming from both sides. So it's not always a single parent household that is a broken household. A broken household exists everywhere. There are fatherless children who are very happy children, who are very capable children, who are emotionally sound children, very measured, very well mannered. There are fatherless children who got enough opportunity to learn something outside of that. We're outside of that nuclear unit. I also, after my father died, my mom moved towards where my grandmother lived. We lived with my grandma, and I learned so much from my grandma. My grandma teach me how to reason. We had conversation as a child. As I said, I grew up really quickly based on the traumatic event, because trauma forces you to grow up or it suppresses your growth. They are one or the other. But being around my grandma, who was already in her 70s, who had seen life, who appreciate life, she weren't trying to teach us how to become like destructive to society. She was religious, and that's where also there's a place in society for religion, for religious principles. There are a place in society for the various religious principles because they all have some kind of positive to it. Ironically, my father was a Rasta man, my mother a Christian woman, and they figured out to get along. And the principle from both directions came into one household, and they found compromise. They found compromise in that household, and that is also where it helped a person to become mature, because you got exposed to something totally different. But even then, I spoke in my previous motivational video, where life steer you in the direction that you must go. My father died when I was 6 years old, and what I learned from him by the time I was 6, it was enough to keep me grounded. It was enough to make me a willing person, capable and measured. And after he exited the household, my mother took it from there, and she gave us example of an amazing man. She never one day spoke of a bad thing. There are questions that I would ask her, and it's like a question that was just dropped on her. She wouldn't have the answer immediately, and when she figured it out, she would come back and she would tell us. My grandma, on the other hand, she was more of a go-getter. She was very handy, and that's how I appreciate handicraft. She made baskets from scratch, where I had to go to where I cut bamboo tree, pull it back to the yard. She would strip the bamboo. We get the rose apple tree. She would strip the rose apple tree, and we would sit there and she would make the basket. Usually she also would burn charcoal and sell charcoal. She sold charcoal. She also broke stones into small pieces like gravel and sold those stones. It was handicraft in that environment, and my grandma was fully immersed. My mother, she traveled for work to make sure that we were taken care of. We didn't understand the need for a man. We didn't understand the dependence, because these were capable women who literally had religion on their side, so they told us how to treat a woman. This was an environment where it was not a broken home. It was a home where we were growing, striving, and learning how to become adults. I completed primary school and high school without even my schoolmates knowing that my father was dead. My teacher one day was so inspired by how measured I was at that time in grade 9. She told me that she would really love to meet my father. And my response to her was, good luck, because I also would love to meet my father. I heard so much about him. Yeah, he was around until I was 6, but you can only remember so much when you were only 6 years old. So at that point, I didn't have a bad memory of my father. At some point, I didn't even have a memory of my father. I just had good images of my father, that I wanted to be better than this guy, or at least as good as he was. I heard about him being the man who is responsible enough to work, bring back the provisions, and just make sure that the family is okay. That's what I strive to be. Strive to become like him. But there are also examples, and I've encountered examples of a household where it's in shambles. It is in shambles. The father is not in the household, and the mother who lives with the children constantly remind them that the father is not there, and she paint the worst images of the father, and vice versa. And my reason for explaining why I come to the defense of a single mother, or fatherless children, or absentee father, is because circumstances forces family apart. Now more than ever, circumstances force family apart. But there's also opportunity in those circumstances, because with the absence of my father, I push for more. I remember some of the real struggles. They were a lot, and they were quite extreme, but they were not the destination struggle. They were just journey. It was just journey, and sometimes the journey is so fun when you look back, because you develop a culture in that struggle, so that when you got to that destination, you are still energized, you're still hyped. Even now, working among people who had it easier, I usually outshine some of these people, because they don't know what it is like to like dig from the bottom. Just dig your way out of a problem, smile your way through to a difficult situation. And that is why I empathize with these single mothers. Some of these mothers, they will themselves through life. They will literally get up each day and will themselves through life. It's like they live for their children, they live for themselves. They get to that point where the children advance beyond the worst part of their life, become a better version of themselves, and a good citizen of the world. And oftentimes they are applauded. These single mothers are applauded, but they are not all the time. Sometimes they get more ridicule than applause. And sometimes a man who is not in the household, he literally make a conscious decision to save his children trauma, because he knew that there are things that cannot be repaired by him being there. There would be a constant combat in that environment. that the children would learn to become warriors for what, like, not, they don't have any peace. All they do is prepare for war, and they either start one or finish one. I come to the defense of the single parent environment to highlight that some of these environments are not broken environments, they're single parent environment. But we also have broken environment within single parent household. There are also broken environment within nuclear household and within extended household, or whichever kind of family. The worst kind of family is the broken family by far. That's the worst kind. Rewrite the narrative. Like, share and subscribe. Hit that notification bell for future video uploads, and drop a comment if you got to the end of this video and you were able to spot a gem or two. Drop in the comment below and let me know what the gem was. Rewrite the narrative.